What is going on, everyone? Chris with Journals, Comics, and Pop Culture, and today we are talking about a statement that I think has been on a lot of people's minds probably for many years now. And Bob Mia here in one of the comic book groups and forums on Facebook has made the statement for all of us. The problem with comics now is that they are too expensive. We're going to go into this. If you aren't subscribed to the channel, please take the time to do so. Check out all the links in the description below as well. But let's dive into this statement. Now, we're going to go over some comments. I'm going to give my thoughts. And of course, as always, I want to hear all of your thoughts in the comments below. What I think Bob here is talking about specifically is the modern comic, the modern floppy, and the cover price of books on New Comic Book Day. Going to your local comic book shop, or even if you're buying them online or whatever, and cover price now for the standard comic book is $4.99. And this is something that I think has turned a lot of collectors off, including myself. So that's what I think he's talking about. I don't think he's talking about like, oh, they're too expensive, like, back issue collecting or valuable books. It becomes so expensive that we can't afford them. And we hear that argument quite often as well. This is specifically new comics for those of us that want to read new issues, collect our favorite characters, and read the current storylines. And I agree. And I'm going to tell you guys, I used to have a monthly order with mycomicshop.com. I've had pull lists with local comic book stores in the past too, but I have not made a monthly order or a new comic book day order in, let's say, 9, 10, 11 months now. What do? Dare I say it? I am a subscriber to Marvel Unlimited. So the few titles that I'm still reading, like Star Wars or my Spider-Man titles, I read digitally, folks. Yes, I do. I read digitally. Even though I would prefer reading the floppy copies, that's what I do. Because it's so much cheaper to buy an annual subscription for $70? And I can get I can read anything. I can go back and read all the back issues from comics from the 70s or 80s or whatever I want to read. Like I'm currently going through the whole X Factor run and reading that again. So I agree with Bob here, but let's look at some of the sentiment going on in the community, because I just think this is very important to when we pull the community and when we look at the sales numbers of modern comics. What are people thinking? The absolute ignorance of this post all around. Brian, I don't know what you mean, but I'm going to keep reading here. John says, it's really disgusting. No way kids get into this. I mean, 5 to 10 new releases, that'll be $50. Oh, then there's tax, bags and boards, $65. Thank you. See you next week. I mean, it's tough, and even with kids, like, look, when I was a kid, my allowance was like 50 cents or $1, maybe $2, right? Even with kids' allowance, if they're getting $20 in allowance, I mean, still think about that. That's only 4 books, not even with tax and all that stuff, that you could get with allowance. And I know kids don't want to just buy comic books. Maybe they want to buy a soda or a candy bar or go to the gas station and, get some hot, spicy Cheetos or Takis or something like that. So it's, even with inflation and with looking where money is at today, it's a lot of money. Sean says, I don't remember the last time I saw someone under 25 buying a comic, and I'm in there twice a week. Now, let me also, before I get into any more of these comments here, say I'm an educator. I see kids reading comic books still, but mainly it is not the floppy comic. I see them bringing trades to school to read, even of the superhero genre. I see them reading the young readers, like for Star Wars. It's like, what is it, Star Wars Academy, I believe. And then, of course, I see a lot of kids reading manga. And that's the truth of the matter. The floppy is not something that you see kids bringing to school and reading. All right, comics lost to manga a long time ago. Ooh, this is a great thread, and I might get into this, but let's keep going down here. See what Larry says here. Larry says, ooh, this is a lot. Let's bear with us. Let's see what Larry has to say here. I haven't read this yet. One of a litany of problems with comics today, especially from the big publishers. Storylines far too drawn out, absolutely. And what Larry means by this, I pick up a Spider-Man comic for $4.99, and in the whole book of, what is it now, 21 pages, there's like 7 word bubbles throughout the whole story. Nothing happens in it. And I waited a month to spend $5 on 7 word bubbles to where nothing even pans out in this story. So storylines are far too drawn out. Too many events that change everything. Agree. Endless new number ones. Now, I'm not necessarily mad with all the number ones. I'm on the fence with that. Pointless multiple cover variants that only serve to milk the dwindling collector base. Okay, now they are there to milk the dwindling collector base, but they're not pointless. And I've talked about this before. I might come back to that here in a minute. No real attempt to draw in new regular readers. I actually disagree with that. But see, this is a problem. I think that Marvel, especially, and DC have tried to draw in new readers. I mean, you can even see that with, a lot of these things that people declare woke, and I'm not even going to get into that. I don't tend to the buzzwords, but even Jim Lee said a few years ago when he was talking about going to a more global audience. So if you think, you want more like Asian characters that are actually from a country in Asia rather than just being Asian American, or different characters with a different background, including religion, like Kamala Khan. I think these are actually good things that, if done right, you can actually bring in fresh audiences. So I think that is happening, but I think the problem is that sometimes it falls flat because, unfortunately, what they're doing is they're using recycled creators that really are tone deaf to anything that's culturally different from their own experience. That's a whole other conversation as well that we can sit here and talk about for an hour. Covers becoming the sole purpose in and of themselves with bad writing and poor art found within. I do agree with this. This goes hand in hand with storylines being far too drawn out. There's good writing out there still, folks, but there does seem to be more of a quantity over quality overall. And yeah, some of the interior art, it's just like, it's so, to me, lazy. The art, people talk about lazy writing. There's a lot of lazy art. But let me tell you though, that isn't nothing new. That's been around for a long time. Creators loathe to do something new and to create new IP, which they aren't properly compensated for. This is true. So we end up with the same tired tropes of gender swaps, generational offshoots, established character mashups, and meaningless character deaths only to be resurrected. I agree too. And I don't think this person is trying to be like ignorant by saying gender swaps. Oh, well, why can't there be a woman? Or like, I just think what they're saying is, oh, well, Captain America is a popular character, so let's make a woman Captain America, or let's make 20 different Hulks. That's what I think this individual is trying to say. And I agree. It is very tiring. If the industry cared about saving themselves, Marvel and DC don't, since all they are now is an IP factory for their giant corporate parents. There's definitely some truth to that as well. They would do the following. Ooh, I'm enticed here. A return to single issue stories. They can all have larger overarching narratives, but get back to the beginning, middle, and end in one issue. I agree with this, or even more so, a more condensed 3-issue story arc instead of letting a story arc pan out for like 12 issues and it doesn't even pan out still, and then they recycle it with a new number one, and there's that issue with the new number ones, right? Focus on creating compelling and interesting storytelling, written well and drawn competently. It used to be the big art superstars actually drew the book and the cover. Yep. Utilize the cover art to actually sell the story within rather than something sometimes unrelated or disconnected. Very true. Return to printing on pulp cheaply. They could still print a prestige version on good paper and sell at a premium. Make them exclusive to the local and online comic shops only, which leads to my next point. Okay. What's this individual's name here? I'm liking what this guy's saying, Larry, and there's a lot of truth here, but I'm going to tell you why this won't happen. Let's continue on first, though. A return to retail ubiquity. Drop them on every existing magazine rack, supermarket checkout lane, drugstore, Walmart, Target, anywhere and everywhere kids go. Make them visible and inexpensive impulse buy. Get comics back in front of kids again. Few parents are going to track down an LCS, take their kids and drop a $5 a comic. I agree. And do it monthly. They're not going to do that. Make the pulp comics an everyday retail store, a lost reader. Take free comic book day to the next level and get these out at 150 or less. I don't really understand what he's saying there. Make getting better advertising a priority. Nobody wants to advertise the comic books because there's no revenue drive there. It's not driving any revenue to anybody advertising. Get back to corporate sponsorships. Like, okay, I think Larry is probably older than me, and this is where I agree with the sentiment, but this is the problem. Let's see. In short, actually make it a priority to grow the readership base rather than exponentially milking an ever decreasing and aging base. People, and I'm sure executives like to scoff, oh, print is dead, brick and mortar retail is dead. And this is kind of to the point that I was going to make. Well, it's not. As a matter of fact, some of these things are still thriving and even returning. Comics are dying only because of poor, short-sighted decisions by the publishers that are making them die. There is a whole generation of kids who don't know comics because they don't see them, but would love the whole retro idea. If that's enough of a tickle, give them stories and characters to care about and suck them in, just like we all got hooked. Larry, I'm going to challenge you here. I love your enthusiasm, and you bring up a lot of key points to what is lacking in comic books. But I'm sorry, Larry, your step-by-step framework of getting back to the floppy comic is not going to work. And yeah, you are dated. It is not the 60s, 70s, 80s, or even the 90s anymore. It's not even the early 2000s anymore. No, brick and mortar is dying. The nostalgia that's there is for the people that you say are aging and dying out. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't have the big two get back to providing a comic book product that can tend to young readers and the nostalgia buffs at the same time. Now, there's so many holes in this. Why are they going to print on new stock and then have this premium copy? Even though the new stock is cheaper, the pulp is cheaper. Because now you're going to press twice. We all know that going to press twice costs more money. So it ain't saving nobody money. You're not going to go back to the newsstand market and put comic books, even at $1 or $2 a pop, at a grocery market. Kids aren't going to grocery markets to find comic books. They're going to grocery markets, if they're not hitting the AM PM or the 7-Eleven, to get hot Cheetos and Takis and, the Powerade drinks, Jake Paul's, Powerade drink or energy drink, whatever it is. It's like, no, these kids are not the same kids that we were, and it's just the evolution of the world that we are living in. Now, I do believe that the publishers need to get back to the basis of this. Yes, there is a way to where you don't need to, the publishers don't need to add a lot more money into beefing up the stories per issue, especially at a $4.99 cover price for the readers that are there. There is a way to do that. All right. But I also think instead of doing this, let's go back to pulp and then do this, like, you want to get the young readers and you want to keep it print. It's all about the trade paperback. It's all about the trade paperback graphic novel formula. And this is what I think they need to do. And I do believe that DC tried to test this out when they were doing the Future State or soon after that, few years ago now. Quality over quantity. Shorten up the monthly titles. shorten up the monthly titles, and then get story arcs. Like he was saying, this one issue. Well, let's not do one issue. Let's get a story arc that can fit the size of a trade paperback. So maybe anywhere from a 3 to 6 issue sized trade paperback graphic novel that isn't released in the floppy form. It's only released via print, via graphic novel trade paperback, or you can download it and buy it and read it digitally. That would tend to the aging, dying out market, and it would also tend to new readers. Where can you sell these graphic novel trade paperbacks to? Which, if you want to get back to the brick and mortar physical type of product, book fairs, because that's where I see it. Book fairs. When are people buying, Big Nate or Dogman or manga or the Star Wars Academy or the Superhero Squad, graphic novel trade paperback type books? Book fairs. Scholastic, all of these things, those things are still in effect to where kids have access to this stuff. There are ways to find a middle ground in everything that Larry is saying here to where collectors can get more for their money, and it can tend to a young reader base. So, man, this is a whole, I could keep going. Let's read a couple more comments, folks. Even the price wouldn't be bad if the quality of the stories were good, which for the most part they are not. Plus, there's too damn many books, way too many reboots. The only thing keeping modern comic books afloat are speculators and variant covers. Now, David Amora here just said some of the things that I just said, and this goes back to the variant covers, and I'm going to bring this up now. I've said this about variants. You can't get mad about variants because even though it's crazy, and the 30 to 40 variants per issue, if variant covers did not exist, if the variant market did not exist, I can almost guarantee you that the floppy market would be dead by now. The floppy market would be ceasing to exist if it wasn't for the variant market, which for new comic books holds the majority of comic book sales. Cover A's are just there because they need a cover A. The publishers are selling the variants. That's what's keeping the press going. A lot of the new coloring is sometimes way too dark and wipes out the details. Maybe you have expensive taste. Shop in the 50-cent boxes. So I think Joe is kind of maybe misunderstanding. He's thinking, oh, back issues. But here's a tip, though, guys, for all those collectors that are into the new books. Like, look, many of these books, depending if you have access to how, LCSs in your area, multiple LCSs, a lot of these back issues oftentimes end up in back issue bins cheaper than the cover price. Or you'll have a LCS once they end up in the back issue bins, if they're still at cover price, they have 25% off sales or 50% off sales. And I do know there are a lot of LCSs right now that think that just because a book now goes to the back issues, that they're taking a $3.99 book and pricing it at $5 in a back issue bin. Sorry, that's not how it works, and that's going to be a whole other video that I'll be talking about that, but not how it works. Few more comments here. Comic prices are crashing dramatically. So again, Matt here is talking about the secondary market. Let's read what Sean here has to say. It definitely hurts indie publishers the most. I'm a lot less likely to pick up a couple of unknowns at $3.99 a shot when I'm already in for several $4.99 books from the big guys. Smaller publishers in particular, I think, should strive to keep their per issue costs lower. I definitely be more likely to pick up a few. I mean, I agree here that, yeah, look at what Todd's been doing with his Spawn books, keeping them low. At $2.99, I believe they're still at. But I don't necessarily think this is comparing apples to apples here with the indie market. I mean, the indie market, there's been a lot of thriving titles within the indie publishers. So, regardless of the cover price. Image keeps the cover price down. Yep, I had to cut back on the stories I read. 4.99 a floppy. Yikes. Let's see. Supply and demand. Companies take advantage of compulsive collecting. Um, Shane, I don't think cover price is really about supply. Well, I mean, it's about supply and demand because the demand actually is decreasing. So when you think of supply and demand, usually if the demand continues to increase, you can continue to raise that price to be competitive on the market. Demand increases. That means there's less supply out there because more people are buying and buying and buying in on it. So okay, we're going to raise the price to get to that market equilibrium. But and if demand decreases, usually what are you going to do? Well, there's more supply on the market. We got to lower our price to sell more to the demand that's there to bring that demand back up. That's not happening here because the comic book market is very much, it's not even an imperfect market, it's an imperfect market of an imperfect market. And I'll be talking about this with a really awesome YouTuber friend of the channel um, in the near future here. But yeah, so there's a strategy behind how publishers can continue to raise the cover price of new floppies. So let's see. That and good stories are difficult right now. I'm also sick of the cover artist concept. I miss days when I could go to Midtown with $20 to come out with a stack. $20 get you 2 to 3 books now. Definitely an expensive hobby for kids these days. Wasn't too bad when I was a kid in the '80s. Not sure how they do it now. So guys, I mean, look, this really, I mean, you could just keep reading all these comments. The majority of collectors, at least this small um sample size of collectors, are saying that it is 4.99 a comic book is just not working for so many people. So I want to hear your thoughts in the comments below about what you think the answers are, because you really got to take into consideration all the things that were brought up today and that I spoke on too. Comic books as a floppy item aren't just dying out because of comics, not publishers not doing the right thing with comics. The brick and mortar is dying in so many ways. Everything is about convenience today, guys. I mean, Uber Eats, Amazon, everything is delivered at our door. I mean, we're so lazy that and I don't want to just say lazy. I mean, it's signs of the times that like people are working 2 jobs and you just want a quick eat. You go up and you pull up to the mobile order. At McDonald's or Outback Steakhouse or wherever it is. All fast food to big restaurants have the mobile order pickup. So it's like all this boom, 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 instantaneous convenience. We don't want to go places to shop anymore. We want it on our doorsteps. And it's the same thing with how we consume things. We don't want this physical copy that takes up space and takes up all this other stuff. It's in our phone, it's in the Internet of Things, it's on our smart TV, it's on our tablet. Everything in one place for convenience. So it's a sign of the times. We are evolving whether you like it or not. But there is a market for the comic book genre, whether the superhero genre, whether it's a subgenre like horror, indie, or whatever it may be. There are ways that the publishers can make decisions to improve what's going on with new comic books, new stories for old readers and new readers alike. And I would love to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments below. Thank you all so much for watching. Be well, and until next time.